Hey everybody, I'm Shadow.
I'm Grumpy, and today we're going to talk about Walking Dead, Season 7, Episode 10, New Best Friends. So let's get to it!
Alright, so today we're going to talk about the 5 burning questions from this episode that everybody wants to know. Starting with Jadis. Now she says, we take, we don't bother. Bother who? Didn't they bother Alexandria when they kidnapped Father Gabriel?
You know what I think what she does not bother? She lets everybody else do the work. So they let them do the work, go get the supplies, get what they want, and then they go get what they want. So they let another group.
So what you're saying is when she says we don't bother, she actually means we don't bother going out and looking for this stuff or getting it on our own. We just steal it from other people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's less chancy. They're taking less of a chance if they let...
So it's less risky, so that's why they didn't go to the
Right.
boat?
So they take less risk. They let the other people go get it. When they got it, then they take it.
Yeah, but aren't they expending as much energy doing it that way? I mean, you heard her say that we've been watching this boat and waiting for somebody to get the stuff for us for a long time. Well, rather than standing around for a long time waiting, wouldn't it have been just as easy to go out to the boat, get the shit, and come back?
I don't know. Maybe they're afraid they're going to get bit by a walker or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, they have the numbers where getting bit by a walker really isn't going to hurt them if they lose 1 or 2 people.
I'm just thinking like she does.
Mm.
I know what I would do. Maybe you know what you would do. I would do it differently.
I would have done what Rick did, or at least I would have tried to patch the holes first or something.
I know it.
But, I mean, I think it was a bother that they had to actually work to kidnap Father Gabriel. You know?
It bothered Father Gabriel.
This is
But
true.
it didn't bother them.
This is true.
But, I think Father Gabriel probably got a raw deal on it because I think a lot of people thought that Father Gabriel was a traitor. And that's what it appeared to be. And then in all reality, it wasn't that.
Well, I think that most people who watch the show regularly and religiously were able to pick up on the fact that there was somebody else in the car with him. And, I mean, as soon as I picked up on that fact, the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, somebody's forcing him to do this because they popped up in the middle of him driving away. They weren't sitting upright when he first took off. So somebody was making him do this. The question was who? I thought, personally, that it was the Saviors, and they'd come and they started shit because Daryl had run away.
Yeah, but maybe the viewers, like yourself and I, that were watching this, but the people, the characters themselves, I'm guessing, thought that Father Gabriel was a traitor.
Well, no, because if you remember, the minute Rick got there, and the minute they saw the place empty, Rick went to the chapel and went looking through Father Gabriel's stuff because he knew that he left him a clue.
Well, that's Rick.
But everybody was with Rick at the time.
Right, but I think some of them probably thought that he was a traitor.
I suppose it's possible. Next question at hand is the king acting like a total douche coward, or is he justified in his reluctance to join the fight?
I think he's acting like the cowardly lion right now. I think he's concerned about his people. He doesn't want to see his people die. He doesn't want to get injured in any way.
So isn't that the smart thing, though?
But a lot of his people want to fight.
Right. But is it being a coward wanting to protect your people?
Well, I think he's been given a lot of hints. Look, the Savior's been staying outside of his camp.
Right.
Okay? But other people know eventually that the Saviors are going to go into the camp.
Well, going by what the king does, and his agreement with the Saviors, I can look at it from his point of view. He's pretty confident that they're not going to break their deal. And he's not going to. And if he doesn't break the deal, there's no reason for the Saviors to come into his kingdom. And if that's the case, then not going to war and honoring his deal is a way to keep his people safe.
If they do one thing wrong that the Saviors don't like, the Saviors are going to bust into that place.
Well, they've been doing things. I mean, look at the fight that he had with Richard the first time, and then this time where he pulled the gun on Richard and took his gun and said, "Assholes don't get guns."
Yeah, but Deegan wasn't there. I think it made it better.
Deegan's never going to be there. He sends his people out. Those people are responsible for his community.
He's been there in some places, like when he went to Rick's camp there. So I think if he was there at the kingdom, I think it made it end up different.
Well, I think the reason he was at Rick's camp is he took a special interest in Rick's group because of the fact that Rick was so defiant.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
The Hilltop, they have, one person dealing with Gregory. Then the kingdom has another person dealing with the king on a one-to-one basis. So they have their own representatives for each community. Negan is for Alexandria. Was it Gordon? I think it was is for the kingdom, and then they have the one for the Hilltop. So I don't think that Negan would ever show up at the kingdom unless his representative went back and said, "We have a real problem over there. We're going to need backup."
Well, the thing with the Saviors, though, even though they're brutal and they have their ways, they're still a well-oiled machine. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they want to do and how they're going to do it.
Well, yeah, and I think most of that has to do with the fact that they have the numbers. If they didn't have the numbers, they wouldn't be so confident. And I think once they realize that they may not have the numbers anymore, that then they may be outnumbered.
It might be a game changer.
Yeah, it might be a totally different story. I personally think that the king is doing what's right in his mind to keep his people from entering the war and any more of his people getting injured or killed, and stopping these kids from losing arms and legs. I don't think that he's doing it because he's afraid to fight. I think he's doing it because he's afraid of the consequences of fighting.
I think what's going to happen, two things. Either the king's going to say, yes, we're going to fight, or his people are going to get so defiant and they're going to say, F you, we are going to fight.
So you think that it's either going to be the king lets him do it, or they're going to mutiny?
They're mutiny. They're going to say, F you, we're going to fight. That's my opinion.
All right. Question number 3. Will Tara tell about the Oceanside? Will she tell Rick where the big stash of guns is?
Now, I don't know if she'll tell him or not. I don't know if Tara may go there herself and maybe talk to her one friend that she had. Or maybe she will tell Rick and maybe they'll sneak and tell the guns. Or maybe they'll try to reason with them. I don't know if the Oceansiders are really going to want to give up their guns because they need to protect themselves. They have a hatred for the survivors too.
The saviors.
And maybe they could possibly convince the Oceansiders to join the fight.
Yeah, but the question is, will she tell Rick? I don't think she'll do this on her own because she had that conversation with Rosita where she said, no, we're all sticking together right now. We're all together. No one's leaving. We need to stand together. So with that, I don't think that she's going to just run off and talk to the Oceanside. Plus the fact that Rick just told her, you've been out there, we need you to tell us where we shouldn't bother looking. And she said with a kind of a weird smile on her face, she agreed. And it's like almost as if she knows where to get the guns and she's ready to tell Rick, or I'm not sure. I know that she's going to have to deal with the fact that she promised that she wouldn't tell anybody about them.
But I think she may know where these guns are stored, so maybe...
Right, but they're stored right in the middle of their camp. There's no way to get to them without getting in there and get, alerting them anyway.
I think regardless what happens, I believe the Oceansiders will be part of the fight against the Saviors.
Now, when you say part of the fight, you mean that they'll be actively involved in the fight, or that they'll lend their weapons to...
I'm not really sure exactly. I would think that they would want to fight the Saviors because they have a real dreaded hate for them. And I think they realized they didn't have the numbers themselves, but they have a lot of other groups that want to join. Some of them don't, like the Coward there. But I think eventually that everybody will come around.
Well, see, here's the thing. We don't know how many people they had to begin with. They may have had a huge group, and that the Saviors were just better. They may have not had the numbers. We don't know. And that is really, in my opinion, what hinges on their involvement. If they had a large group and they still couldn't get the job done, they're not going to want to join another large group just to have the same thing happen. But in the same sense, I feel that if they think that there's a way for them to get out from under Negan and the Saviors, even if it's supplying guns, that they'll do whatever they can to A, stay alive, and B, get out from underneath Negan.
I think they'll do it if they know that this war can be won. And that's what...
Well, see, that's the thing. Nobody knows for sure. I mean...
They know both sides. There's people going to be killed, but the overall bottom line is the Saviors must be destroyed, and that's what the other groups want to accomplish.
Okay.
And I'm sure the Oceansiders would like to accomplish that too.
Well, all right. Well, that kind of brings us to our next question. Will Carol join the fight, and will she convince the king to join as well?
I think knowing Carol, I think that she may not want to fight at first, but I think eventually she may come around. It might take a little doing, but I think eventually that she may want to join the fight, and she may go to the king and also try to convince him.
Well, see, right now, though, she has no reason to join the fight. Everyone's lying to her and telling her that everything's okay.
But I think eventually she's going to find out what they did to Glenn and Abraham. Eventually she's going to find out, I believe.
Well, she's living in seclusion. I mean, sure, it's probably... I mean, she could probably overhear somebody on one of her travels, but is she going to be so worked up that she's going to join the fight, or is she going to be so pissed that nobody told her, or that they all lied to him, that she's not going to want anything to do with them?
Or does she just have this gut feeling that something's wrong, that something
Well,
something happened?
She seemed to be at ease after Daryl told her everyone was okay. So it's very hard to read her since she's really not on screen a lot.
Unless she decides to go to the kingdom and, I don't know, maybe figure out a couple things and do some of her own investigation. Who knows?
Well, the other question is, of this, if Carol does join the fight, whether she convinces the king or not, do you think that Morgan will be convinced that he needs to join as well?
I think eventually Morgan will. 'Cause one time, don't forget, Morgan thought that, he would never kill anybody, but he has killed people. He may realize that he may have to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, they stole his staff and everything, and they even clipped his ear. They hit him. I don't think. I mean, he, for some reason, even when Daryl approached him and said, dude, you got to change the way you think, he didn't seem impressed. Didn't seem to budge. I don't know if he's ever going to come around.
Well, he has killed people to save other people, and it might come down to that.
It's true. It might. Now for the final. What the hell's going on? Jadis told Rick that the metal walker wasn't just a walker, it was Winslow. Now the question is, who the hell is Winslow?
I don't know. Maybe it's her ex-husband. Maybe it was the leader of the camp at one time that they killed. Who knows?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, could it have been the leader of the scavengers? And once he died, they welded metal to him, because it looked like all that stuff was like welded and put through him and in him, and you know. And she said Winslow, like Rick was supposed to recognize it and go, "Oh, Winslow! Oh, that's what that was."
Maybe they got something going here. Maybe they could they could make a few more walkers like that and put them into the Savior's camp. Who knows?
Oh, maybe Winslow was a pet. Maybe Winslow was like their pet. When she said, "Oh, he's not just a walker, he's Winslow," that's like saying, "Well, that's not just a dog, that's Spot." So maybe it was the pet for the scavengers or their mascot or something. But to put a name on it, especially naming him Winslow, seems just kind of weird as shit.
Sounds like a cartoon character.
Well, we're going to wrap it up for today. You've heard our thoughts on all these burning questions. Now we'd like to hear your thoughts. So leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. And as always, have a good night.
And please don't forget your comments or Winslow will come after you. Thanks for watching.